The other thing as parents we have to be aware of is the way we talk about anything. But specifically today, we're going to talk about how you talk about food with toddlers. But even if we're talking about health or other things, the way we talk about things or the language that we choose to use can have a positive impact, or it can potentially have a damaging impact. How should we talk about food with toddlers? Well, many parents, even myself when I was younger, thought that we should extol the benefits of eating healthy food to our toddlers. And as soon as we could teach it to them, that was the best way to handle it. Well, unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. And I, as a nutrition professional, pediatric dietitian, and a mom, would tell you that leading with health benefits from food is probably not the way to go, not beneficial, and potentially could backfire. In the early years, food education should be very basic and should not tie future health problems to what kids are eating today. So in this video today, I'm talking about how to talk to toddlers about food, including where they are cognitively, where they are in their developmental stage, and how much of what we say to them can they understand. I'll also talk about dichotomous language that can actually be harmful to young people, and 3 ways to build food knowledge without damaging the relationship with food that your toddler is gradually building. Because how we talk about food with toddlers not only builds their food knowledge, but it also builds their attitudes and perhaps even their biases later on. And hey, if you want to learn more about nutrition for your toddler, make sure you follow this channel, give me a like on this video, and drop a comment below. So let's first talk about toddler development. And all toddlers go through this stage of development. It's hallmarked by the fact that toddlers are very curious and they're exploratory. So they're out wandering, trying to learn, engage with their world by touching and feeling and putting things in their mouth. But it's also a period of time where they want to be super independent, but they're not really great at controlling themselves. And so you see them wander off, not want your involvement, but then they retreat back to you and hang on tight because they're not quite confident yet. They think they want to be independent, but the reality of being independent can be a little bit scary. The other thing about toddlers during this stage is that their brain is really like a sponge. They're learning so much, but their ability to understand or their cognitive or intellectual capacity is pretty limited. They need very basic information as the foundation for their knowledge that will, of course, over time, as they grow, build and build and build. The other thing as parents we have to be aware of is the way we talk about anything. But specifically today, we're going to talk about how you talk about food with toddlers. But even if we're talking about health or other things, the way we talk about things or the language that we choose to use can have a positive impact, or it can potentially have a damaging impact. And so what I want to talk about today is this idea of dichotomous thinking and talking versus spectrum thinking and talking. So dichotomous thinking is thinking things in black and white terms. Things are either good or they're bad. They're healthy or they're unhealthy. And you can see how this applies to food. Spectrum thinking is more open-minded. It acknowledges that there's a gray area. So things can be healthy, they can be unhealthy, and they can be anywhere in the middle of all of that, right? Depending on the context, the person who has, a variety of life challenges, financial constraints, medical conditions. So what's healthy for that person versus unhealthy can be very different from what that would be for me. The same with food. We talk about food all the time as good for you, bad for you. That's very dichotomous. When we talk about spectrum thinking, we are talking more in the lines of all foods can fit in if there is variety and balance in what is offered to a child over the course of a day or a week or a month. And so spectrum thinking allows it to be more inclusive, allows for the gray area. Dichotomous thinking or dichotomous language is really very absolute. It's either this or it's that. Of course, for toddlers, when we talk about food with toddlers, we want to be open-minded, flexible, broad, inclusive, because toddlers are learning. They're learning everything about food, mostly from what we are saying about it, what we're presenting at home in their meals and their snacks, and the attitudes that we have ourselves about food. Those come through in our interactions with our children. So we want to be careful to be open-minded and more spectrum thinkers and spectrum language users when we talk about food with toddlers. So here are 3 ways you can talk about food with your toddler. Number 1, name it. And what I mean by that is name the food with its actual name. Broccoli, green beans, carrots, apples, bananas, raspberries, beef, chicken, pork, salmon, mussels, clams. You get what I'm talking about. Use the proper name for food and teach your toddler how to say those words and associate the word with the actual food. We're not saying it's good or bad for the toddler. We're just being objective and we're saying we are having green beans, beef, noodles, and milk for dinner. There's no judgment about whether that food is good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. We're being very plain and objective and open. These are the names of the foods that we are eating. So that's one way to talk about food with your toddler. Not only does naming a food build your toddler's language repertoire, it also sets the foundation for food education down the road. Your child will have an operating manual of food names to be able to use as they grow and move throughout their world. Highlight color, shape, and texture. So you might say red pepper, green apple, yellow banana, red watermelon. So use the words, the color words that are associated with a piece of food. You might also talk about the texture of food. It's soft, it's mushy, it's spongy, it's crunchy, it's hard. Use those words, that language, to build your toddler's vocabulary around food. Not only are they understanding and associating those texture properties with specific foods, they're building a broader language base for food education and discussion about food later on. You can also talk about the shape of foods. The grapes are round, or the grapes are oval in shape. The cheese is a square. The banana is a long cylinder or a curvy cylinder. Use shape words to describe foods as well. Again, very objective, very neutral, and not dichotomous, but factual. The third way is to describe the flavor or the taste that your toddler is experiencing when they're eating food. So you might say, these crackers are salty, or these cookies are sweet. This broccolini is bitter, or this pickle is sour. So again, you're building food language, and with it, the foundation that your toddler will need and use as they enter their broader world, without placing value or dichotomous language that says this is either good or this is bad. You're really just opening up the world of food education for your toddler without moralizing food or placing value on food. And that's really the best way to help your toddler develop a healthy relationship with food when it comes to food education. Again, so many of us want our toddlers to understand the nutrients in food and how that's going to impact their health down the road, but toddlers aren't going to really understand that. And that kind of focus and talk can lead a toddler to be demotivated by food or disinterested in it. And so keep it fun, keep it simple, and age appropriate for your toddler. That's it for today. If you like this video, please drop a comment below, follow the channel, give me a like, and I'll see you next time.